The diner was glowing under the last stretch of evening sunlight, warm and golden, yet inside, the air felt cold enough to shatter. Emily's hands trembled as she pressed the napkin flat against her knee, her heart pounding so loudly she feared the men across the booth could hear it. 5 bikers, huge, tattooed, intimidating, sat like a wall of muscle and steel, their dark vests etched with skulls, wings, and patches that whispered danger. They looked like the kind of men people crossed the street to avoid. The kind she once believed would never be on her side. But desperate hearts don't get to choose who saves them. Not when danger is already breathing down their neck. If you're watching this and believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that anyone, no matter how they look, can be a hero, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Emily took a slow, shaky breath and slid off the stool. Her legs felt like they were made of water as she walked past the group of bikers, pretending to be searching for a napkin holder. She didn't look up. Didn't dare. She simply placed the folded napkin by the nearest biker's mug as quietly as she could and stepped away. Inside the napkin, in thick black marker, was one word, help. Her bruised ribs throbbed, reminders of the hands that had done this to her. The man she once trusted. The man she was running from. She had escaped the motel bathroom window while he passed out, drunk and angry after accusing her of things she never did. She had run barefoot until her lungs burned, finding this diner like a miracle rising from the dust of the highway. She thought she was safe for maybe 5 minutes. But then she saw his truck pull into the lot. Now he was outside, pacing, searching, waiting. Inside, the bikers sat like stones, their eyes unreadable behind years of hard living. Emily didn't know if they would help her. She didn't know if they cared. She only knew she had no one left, no place else to go, and no time. The biker closest to her, broad shoulders, shaved head, arms covered in ink of eagles and chains, picked up the napkin without turning his head. For a second he didn't react. He just stared. Studied the letters like he was reading something sacred. Then he slowly raised his eyes and looked at Emily with a gaze that wasn't cold, but calculating. Careful. Human. The moment stretched like lifetimes. Emily watched, her heart in her throat, as the man quietly reached for the zipper of his leather vest. No words. No expression. Just silence so heavy she felt it in her bones. He pulled off his jacket and placed it gently on the seat beside him, a signal the other bikers somehow understood without question. All of them sat up straighter. Their relaxed posture shifted into something sharp, alert. A storm beginning. Emily didn't know what was happening. She only clutched the counter and tried not to collapse from fear and exhaustion. The head biker, his presence felt like gravity itself, stood up. He walked toward her with slow, steady steps, not wanting to spook her. And though he was terrifying to look at, something in his eyes carried a strange softness. A protective steadiness. Not pity. Not judgment. Something stronger. Something that felt like safety. Without saying anything, he placed his jacket around her shoulders. It was heavy, warm, and smelled faintly of leather and gasoline. But to Emily, it felt like armor. Like someone had finally stepped between her and the monster outside. Her eyes stung, but she held back her tears. The man's voice, when he finally spoke, was low, almost gentle. But it carried steel beneath. A quiet kind of promise. A promise she didn't dare to believe yet, but desperately needed. Emily's past came rushing back to her in waves. The months of silent suffering, the fear of speaking out, the nights spent hoping she could find a way out without becoming another headline. She thought no one would ever help her. That the world had grown too cold. But now, here in this diner, surrounded by 5 men society called dangerous, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, hope. The biker nodded once to his crew, and the men moved like a unit, standing up, adjusting their gloves and vests, the scrape of their boots echoing like thunder. Through the diner window, they could see the man pacing by his truck, furious and unaware that a new force had stepped into Emily's world. One of the bikers approached the window, crossing his arms as he stared out. Another cracked his knuckles slowly. A third calmly sipped the last of his coffee before setting the mug down with a quiet thud. They weren't rushing. They weren't loud. They didn't have to be. Their silence alone was enough to shift the air. Emily watched them, stunned. These men, often judged by their looks and lifestyle, were now preparing to stand up for her without asking anything in return. Not her story. Not her name. Just a simple message, help. Her abuser stormed into the diner a moment later, eyes wild, hands shaking with anger. He spotted her instantly and shouted her name so loudly the windows rattled. But when he took one step toward her, 5 leather-clad figures rose at once. The entire diner froze. Even the ceiling fan seemed to stop spinning. The lead biker moved forward, standing between Emily and the man, his shadow swallowing the space. The abuser tried to puff up, to show he wasn't afraid. But his voice cracked. His hands trembled. He looked into the eyes of the men facing him, and realized he wasn't the biggest, strongest person in the room anymore. A single sentence from the biker was enough to make the man back away. Emily didn't hear the words clearly, but she saw the effect. Whatever was said carried the weight of every road these men had ridden, every hardship they had survived, every loyalty they had honored. The abuser stumbled back, muttering empty threats before finally fleeing out the door and peeling out of the parking lot so fast gravel flew. When the engine sound faded, Emily collapsed into tears, tears of relief, release, and something she didn't expect, gratitude for strangers who saw her pain and didn't look away. One biker brought her a cup of warm coffee. Another knelt beside her to make sure she was unhurt. The leader placed a hand gently on her shoulder and told her she didn't have to be afraid anymore. They would take her somewhere safe. Somewhere her past couldn't reach. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily believed it. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more people hear stories that remind us that goodness still exists. Before you go, comment below, do you believe heroes can come in unexpected forms?